What's up? It's Matt. We are back. Another Monday, another restaurant expert. This time we're across the pond, one way or the other. Mr. Tony Perry, how are you?
I'm bloody good, mate. And how are you?
I'm doing amazing. So tell us
Good.
who you are, where you're from, and all that good stuff.
Okay, Matt. Well, so my history in the restaurant business goes back to the early '80s. So I'm in London, although right now I'm out of London, in my cottage, out in the countryside, getting away from this awful situation we've been facing. So how did I get into the restaurant business? Well, I started off. I was working in the music industry, and as a youngster, you don't make much money in the music industry. So I was living in this big squat with 6 hairy-ass guys, and that's not as much fun as you might think. So I wanted my own place, and I needed an extra job, and I went to work in a bar. That lasted one night. Wasn't really for me, listening to a bunch of sad blokes. A friend of mine was a chef in this Italian restaurant in central London. And he said to me, look, can you come and help us out? One night. I'm like, no. It's just one night, Tony. I loved it. I was so lucky. You know that in times in your life, when you're younger, you meet someone who you just know is going to be very influential, very important to you, a mentor. His name was Brian Woodhams. Rest in peace, bless his soul. He had this Italian restaurant in the Tottenham Court Road in London. Brian wasn't a very good restaurateur, but in terms of running it and in terms of the chef and everything, but he knew that the restaurant business was about entertainment. And he knew that I worked for a record company and therefore I must know about, entertainment. Well, I didn't, not a lot back in those days, but so it was a matter of getting me in and like, okay, you're going to serve some drinks. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't like the bit. Okay, how about you go and serve people? I don't know how to do it. How about you take their orders? You're a good-looking young guy. The ladies are going to like you. We're like, yeah, I can do that. And you get to keep all your tips. Fantastic. That sounds good to me. It blew my mind. The restaurant business for me is show business. And if I ever go to a restaurant and it's dull and dreary, I don't care if the food is frigging amazing. I just would never, ever go back. I would rather have food that wasn't quite as good, but the whole experience of being there was brilliant. And, when people are going to be handing over, it's different for different people, but a certain percentage of their disposable income, you want to make sure they have a night to remember.
Yeah.
Because whatever they've spent, whether it is $20 a head or $50 a head, that is a lot of money to them. And they deserve to be entertained. Now, the food has to be of good quality, hopefully better than they would have at home. The service has to be good, but mostly it has to be an experience. And that's what I learned in those early days. And I stuck working there, I tell you what, Matt, even when it got to the stage where I'd gone up so many levels at the record label that I didn't need the money anymore. It was like a mistress I couldn't leave alone. I just had to keep going back.
Yeah.
Even if it was just like 2 nights a week. We're like, yeah, come on in. You got to do it. So that's where my love of the restaurant industry started. Now, cut a long story short, we now go into the early. So this was during the days of punk rock. Okay, so that's late 77.
Yep.
Early 80s, I get an opportunity to buy a restaurant that had failed in a rundown area in East London. just at the arsehole end of the City of London, the famous City of London with the Roman wall around it. And it was so cheap, and I was so naive, and I was dating this beautiful girl who was running a small team in a restaurant in London. She wouldn't get promotion. They wouldn't give it to her because she was a girl, you know, back in those days. Yeah. And she kind of talked me into it. And I had no money. So I went to Brick Lane Market, okay, the famous Brick Lane in London. And I bought all this secondhand furniture for like next to nothing. And in those days, it was the shabby chic kind of look. So there was no internet. There was no videos to watch or anything on YouTube. So I bought a book, and then I got the paint. You paint up the furniture, then you drag it. Anyway, do it all up. But it's in the end of the street that I was in was, it was run down still. At the other end of the street was a TV chef who opened up, Italian as it happens. And he was backed by lots of celebrity money. So you had the celebrity taste and this, that, and the other. By the way, he disappeared after 9 months. We opened up with very little, but you know what? I employed the girlfriend. I immediately promoted her. Even though she didn't have all the management skills, not a problem. You can teach people those things over a few months. She recruited, and she ran this small team of young people who were really keen. We got ourselves a chef who, for him, it was a step up to have his own place. Simple food with local ingredients, freshly cooked, always delicious, weekly specials, all that sort of thing. And it took off. And we realized that it was all about entertainment. It was a fun place to go to. And we came up with the idea that what you really want is a one-liner that sums you up. And I still think that is so important today. If you own, it doesn't even be a restaurant, it could be a hairdresser's, you know? Gloria's Hairdressers means nothing. Tony's Restaurant means nothing. So we came up with a tag, which was, and I've got some notes here, so I'm just going to look down, okay? I remember our one-liner was fun, service, and food so good, you'll be talking about it right up to your next visit. That was it. I had that printed on black T-shirts on the back. I put it on little business cards that we gave out to people when they came in and also when they were leaving. I put it on the bloody wall. We actually got a painter to come in and paint it on the far wall.
Nice.
It just becomes something that you can repeat. It sums up who you are, what you stand for. And we made sure that people had a really good time. So we would do all sorts of crazy things. Like, obviously, if someone comes in, it's their birthday, then you're going to do something. Yep. If you find out that someone's got a promotion. So we did all these things. If we heard a rumor that someone, just overhearing customer conversation, if someone had just got a promotion at work, or if someone had just got engaged, we had all these little cakes. I mean, I think they probably cost, I'll talk in dollars because most of your audience are probably the US.
Yeah.
I think they cost us about $1 each, buying these frozen cakes en masse. But we had the early day of sparklers. So as soon as we heard it, at the end of the meal, oh, don't get me wrong, we'd let them order dessert first. But then after dessert, we'd come out with these cakes. And all the staff would come around and celebrate, and fantastic. People talked about us. Yeah, we did 5 years until, well, they pulled the building down, so we had to go really. But and that was my start. And then after that, some years went on, and I opened another one, and then I got involved in another 3 where I was co-owner. There was a group of us, and then. Yeah, then of course the internet comes along and makes it all so much easier. But you talk a lot about building your base of customers.
Yep.
You couldn't be more right. It's essential. Back in those days, in the early 80s, We didn't have computers.
Yeah.
Well, I actually had to go out and buy one. It was before Windows. It was a DOS 3.2.
Floppy disk.
Yeah. I had to write a program to do a mail merge to send out. Do you remember those things called letters?
Yep, I remember those.
Yeah. So what we did was we actually put a box on the bar to collect people's data. But that didn't work very well because people, even in those days, don't want to give away their data.
Yep.
So as soon as I knew that someone was a new customer, because I was in there every night, every lunchtime, every night, right? It was Perry's. It was Perry's restaurant. I would go around and talk to them. I think it's so important that either the owner or the owner has such commitment and trust in another person in the restaurant who actually could go out and front it. So I would actually go out there and I'd get talking to people and say, hey, look, you know, we do this wonderful things. When your wedding anniversary comes around, we want to do a deal for you. We want you to come here and we want to love you to bits like you've never been loved before. When it's your birthday, there was no internet. We had to collect the data. So we wrote it all down on sheets of paper and then we had to type it into this DOS bloody computer. Okay? Yeah, exactly.
Hunting and pecking.
So, yeah. And then every 2 weeks, I'd go through the database, and before you know it, suddenly you got 100, and then before you know it, you got 500, and then you look and you go, Christ, we got over 2,000.
Yeah.
It builds up really if you put the effort in, and that's the key thing.
You know what? What got me on the database part, oddly enough, wasn't even retail; it was B2B. When I was right out of college in 1999, my dad took me to an arena to see Zig Ziglar, the famed salesman. And there was a group of 5 people that spoke there. And one of them was a guy named Tom Hopkins. And Tom always talked about the importance of having a database of people who at least already know you. They might not like you. They might not trust you, but they already know you. And if you can build that from a B2B sales, I was selling radio. If you can build that, it'll make every week easier as you go. And it's kind of comical. About 2 years into my radio career, we would have these things called one-day sales, where the station would it was 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. And they'd say, hey, radio inventory gets no love first quarter. A couple weeks before Thanksgiving, we're going to have a big sale. And so we want you guys to call your customers and sell them stuff. And it would be for first quarter. And a big day was somebody would do 20 or 30 grand. They'd get 5 or 10 customers, but they would spend an entire week gearing up for it, all day making phone calls, and then the next week trying to close them. Well, I had built up this huge database in a program called ACT. I had every customer's name, fax machine, email. And so with a click of a button, I would literally send out the week prior warning notices, and I would automate faxes back then. And so when the day came, 8 a.m., I'd send faxes out. I'd have 50 orders coming. I'd do $100,000 to $200,000 in sales, and I'm saying everybody else is doing 20. And it was comical to me because half the orders were from people I hadn't talked to or hadn't really had a relationship with in 6 months. And it was just the right offer. And it was the right thing. And so I always learned early on, like, you know what? Had I not kept their data, had I not known who they were, and had I not catered some things to them, like when I gave the one lady ice cream for her birthday one summer, and it was her favorite flavor from a local ice cream company that was my client, and she lived 3 hours away. Had I not stored that data, I couldn't have created those relationships. And I've just kind of carried that throughout my entire career with helping businesses do the same thing. Because at the end of the day, the person who has the most people on your database is probably going to win.
Do you know what? How many restaurant owners do you talk to? You talk to a lot of restaurant owners every day, every week, 52 weeks a year.
Yep.
How many of them do you talk to and say, do you collect data? And they go, no.
A lot.
And then you exactly. And then you try to convince them and they go, maybe. Let me tell you something. My favorite restaurant in London is called the Wolsey. It's in Piccadilly. If you play Monopoly, you'll know Piccadilly is a very nice area. It costs a lot of money. The Wolsey is inexpensive, but it is the second most profitable restaurant in the world. The first is some restaurant, I forget the name, it's a restaurant in Las Vegas that is the most profitable. The Wolsey in Piccadilly in London is the second most profitable. They do 10 million a year, and they make, after all costs are deducted, they make 7%. It's about normal.
Yeah.
They collect data, and they collect it very cleverly, and they communicate with the data they've got, i.e. the people, in a very smart way. They're not over intrusive. They're not on you, they're not emailing you every 2 days. They only contact you about once a week. But when you've got somebody, you've got the second most profitable restaurants in the world who understand that data is really important. And then you get a small restaurant that goes, oh, I don't know, really. I don't think that I want to do that. Of course you want to do that. The third most profitable, which was owned by the two guys who own the Wolsey, is called the Ivy chain, which is also in London. And they built that up and they sold it because there was a big commitment to actually build up the Wolsey. They also collect data.
Yep.
So the second and the third most profitable restaurants in the world collect data. They collect it cleverly. They use it cleverly. And hey, that's why they're the second, third in the world. When I go in there, I mean, when you go into the Wolsey, and listeners, you can Google this afterwards and check it out. It's a beautiful place. It's like in the style of the grand European palaces.
Okay.
But you know what? You go in there. You can go in there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you get a fried egg sandwich and a coffee. You can go in there when all the restaurants in London have closed after theatre time, and you can get a meal. They are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have a team, and labour wages in London is a minimum of 15. London living is £15 an hour. That's about $18, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap. That's a lot of money. But they're so well trained. I mean, over here in the UK, I don't do much myself now, but sometimes I have people phone me up and they go, no, go and have a long, lazy lunch at either any one of the Ivy restaurants or at the Wolsey, and just sit back, invest your money in buying a long, lazy lunch and watch how they do it, because they are so good. You got to be, it's entertainment, first of all. It's got to be an experience, okay? Particularly now, more important than ever, and we can go on to Ebo and the other takeaways in a moment. That's the new competition, not the guy down the street. Yeah. You've got to be really, really clever. You've got to know how to run it. The days of my wife's a really great chef, and we're going to open this place, and you're going to fail. You need more than that. You need, you need something that's called a business plan.
Novel idea, huh?
Yeah. I mean, would you open up a car retail garage without a business plan? No. Would you? Of course not. No. Would you open an art gallery? No. I'm going to open this restaurant down this street because there isn't any others. There aren't any others because no one goes down that street.
That's what on my podcast last week, Kelly Gray, who's in the real estate.
I listened to it.
Yeah, she talked about real estate, and we talked about that. It's like one thing that cracks me up is I'll see a restaurant 2 or 3 miles from my house go into a strip center, into a space that's been 10 prior restaurants, and somehow the person that comes along, number 11, goes, "I'm the magic." Like unless you're Chipotle or Chick-fil-A or like that in the United States, you aren't the magic. And they ignore those signs. But I want to go back to something you said earlier, which I think resonated a lot with me. I think a lot of businesses, I was telling a friend of mine this in the restaurant who trains servers. And I said, some of us, like me, I'm spoiled. Me and my wife and kids, we eat out way too much. So eating out for us, we expect bad experiences in between and great ones. We don't have to be wowed. We eat out a lot. But I've got other friends of mine that eat out once every 2 weeks. And so when they go to that restaurant, that's their expenditure. That's their big purchase of $50, $60, $70. And they want a good experience. They want to have fun. They don't want stress. They don't want to wait. They want to have a great experience. And sometimes it goes awry. And I think that's what I always tell my friend. I said, man, if he was asking me about training servers, he was like, what would you? He's like, Matt, you eat out a lot. What do you see? I said, I see a lot of people that don't enjoy what they do enough. Like we had a server the other night at a restaurant near my house called Barleycorns. We go there weekly for the past 5 to 6 years. She came by our table and she asked our names. And I said, why are you asking our names? She goes, I just like to know who I'm talking to. She's like, I've seen you guys in here a lot and I don't know your names and I should. I said, what's funny is I use Barleycorns a lot in examples as a business that has no clue who the hell I am. The owner knows me, but he runs a different location. But like this store, the manager couldn't tell you who I am. And I'm the only moron that walks in with orange shirt and orange shoes every day. And I said, but I loved it because she used our names. She talked to us when we were done. Hey, I can't wait to see you back, Paige, Cole, Christy, and Matt. And it made a different experience than normal.
Yep. You can't, where do I start? It's the one thing that if someone said to me, what's the one thing? It has to be an experience. Like you, well, not at the moment, but prior to this current crisis, I would eat out 3-4 times a week in London. And I would go to different places. I always end up going to the places where they look after me and make me feel special.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. Even if I'm going to choose a hairdresser's, you might not be the best hairdresser in the world, but you make me feel wonderful. It's no different. You know, it's about people. And because it's about people, you need to employ people who are people type people. If you've got somebody who's shy and introverted, somebody who, doesn't really like engaging with other people, if somebody who would like, all these damn people coming here and annoying me, it's like the person who like, I hope it's a quiet night. You don't want those people who are working for you. Okay, you want the people who are fun people. If they drop a plate occasionally full of an expensive steak, live with it. Yeah. As long as they're the fun people, they might, because they're young, they might occasionally say the wrong thing, but you can smooth it over. You need to employ people who understand. Now, in an area like London, or New York, or LA, of course, you get a lot of people who want to be actors. And you can go to the various magazines that they all read, and you can advertise in there, and you can employ those kind of people who get it. They understand it's show business.
Good idea.
Now, yeah, there you go. There's one for you. So there is that. The other thing is that, so we've done that. The other thing is going back to building up your data. I read today that Uber have just purchased some delivery company for $2.5 billion. Is that right?
Yeah.
Uber aren't going away. Their taxi, their so-called taxi delivery service isn't doing very well. The other side of the business, Uber Eats and everything, is going incredibly well. They are now the major competitor. And that means that people are going to be, a lot of people don't want to cook anymore. They just want to, have it delivered to them. Not just a pizza or fried chicken. They actually want some more complicated food, more what you might call luxury food.
Yeah,
and you can get that now. I mean, you can get anything now in London. I mean, you can have a 3 Michelin star meal delivered to you in London, right? You do the same in Manchester as well. It's like,
Yep.
The more that they intrude into your business, the more you're going to have to try harder to get those people to come into you. And that's going to be everything that we just talked about. It's going to be about getting your management of the restaurant right. If that means that you need to pay for an accountant who specializes in restaurants, oh, come on, it's only $20 an hour to employ that kind of accountant who can sit down with you and go through your costs. And I've met so many restaurant owners over the years who haven't figured out what their minimum trade needs to be just to break even.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something that I was glad a lot of my clients, when COVID hit, I could tell which of my clients were all kind of knew their stuff, because they would say, Matt, I got to have $480 a day. How do I get I know it's going to be ugly the next 60 days. How do I get $480 a day to just make sure this doesn't go the wrong way? And it was cool, because I had a lot of conversations like that through that time of what kind of sales they needed, what kind of gross they needed, what kind of net. And it was because they had their business people. And at some point they sat down with somebody who helped them build the right financial modeling for their business.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? How many restaurants have you met in the last year who have never done that?
Oh, a lot. I talk to restaurants all the time. I don't get too deep into the restaurant stuff, but I'll ask them, hey, what are these numbers? What are this? What are this? Because we're trying to come up with promotions, and I want to come up with promotions that have the best, can benefit the restaurant as well as drive sales. And I'm amazed some of them that don't know, but then on the other side, I'm amazed. I'm not amazed. I'm pleasantly surprised at some that know more, but there are a lot of them. So talking about marketing, you've got a book coming out, right?
Yeah, I have. But remind me to go back to what you just talked about.
Okay? Let's talk about that real quick. Talk about that. We'll come back to the book.
Yeah. So the book. In fact, before we went live, I've just been doing the final edit before it goes off for. You've written 2 books. It has to go for pagination and everything else, and then it goes off to Amazon. So it's for. So this book is designed for restaurant owners, and it's all about Instagram. And I don't want to go into too deep because it will be available at the end of this month. So there's my little plug. There you go. Thank you very much. So it's what I've done with clients of mine over the last 2 years. How we maximize the full potential of Instagram to not just get likes, because likes isn't money in the till. It's how you actually utilize it and how you turn that into money in the till. So the book is a 60-minute read. I've designed it in such a way that you open up a page and you just go, it's very easy, double spaced, not many long paragraphs. It's just to the point. So it's a how-to-do book. If you bought yourself a second-hand tank, which you can do these days, you'd need an instruction manual to use it, right?
Yep.
Well, if you're 42 years old and you don't know much about Instagram or Facebook or any of these platforms, then how are you supposed to know what to do with it? So Instagram is a beautiful platform for businesses like restaurants and hairdressers, those sort of things. But I've focused it purely on restaurants. And when you've read the book, at the end of it, you can either tell me you're an old guy and you don't know what the hell you're talking about, or you can go, God damn, that's brilliant. And if you don't like it, you can return it and I'll make sure Amazon refund you money. Because, it's everything I wish I had known when Instagram first started.
Okay.
But it's a learning curve.
Can you give us a couple sneak peeks? Like what's 1 or 2 things that you were like, man, if I would have known that a few years ago.
Hashtags. It's the number 1 question I get asked all the time. So after this, you can go online, right? Go onto your Instagram account, just type in restaurants and have a look, and then look at the post. And it will be like hashtag food. What the hell's that got to do with your restaurant? How is that going to drive people into you? And also, the hashtag food probably has 58 million followers. So your chances of it showing up in someone's search are not even 1 nanosecond. Okay. Now, if you live in the town of, what town do you live in, Matt?
I live in Union, Kentucky.
Okay. So if you started the hashtag off with that, the name of the town, followed by pizza restaurant, fried chicken, rib restaurant, whatever it is you do, well, there aren't many hashtags competing with that. So now you're going to find that people are going to start drawing to you. So it's using the right hashtags, because 9 times out of 10, I mean, I must look at 100 restaurants a week and just go, this is just rubbish. If you're going to, it's as much effort to do it right as it is to do it wrong. So for God's sake, do it right.
Yeah.
So that's one, is the hashtags. The other is the geotagging. Is that people go, I was in New York tail end of last year, and I was at a restaurant, and the guy, I know the guy, and he comes over and he goes, Tony, I've got 6,000 followers on Instagram. And I go, that's brilliant. Let's have a look. And to go, yeah. None of these live in New York. In fact, not many of them actually live in the United States of America. They're from all over the world. So what is the point?
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, well, you got to, I went, no, you'd be better off with 600 followers who live local to where you are.
Yeah.
And because you're in a big city like New York, there's no point having hashtag New York, because New York's about the same size as London. It's about 32 miles by 32 miles across, all in total. I'm not going to drive 32 miles to go there for lunch, no matter how good you are. So you've got to break it down. So if you're in a big city, you've got to break it down. So it might be Queens, hashtag pizza restaurant Queens, or Queens pizza. You've got to try these things and test them for yourself. Find out what works. It's only 2 days effort, for God's sake. It's easy, as long as you know what you're doing. But you know what? As long as you actually do these things and you do them correctly, then you'll find that Instagram, actually, you'll start to build the audience. And you talk a lot about social media, I know, and you're right. Most of it is free. As long as you do it right, then it's brilliant. Yeah. You can't go wrong. Why would you keep? Was it Einstein who said, if you keep doing something in the same way and expect a different result, that's insanity?
Yeah.
Yet you go onto Instagram and you look up, not just restaurants, it could be hairdressers or any other industry, and you look up and what they post every day and you go, what's the point? None of these people who are going to like this. And by the way, likes are about to be removed on Instagram.
Yeah.
So that's pointless anyway. How many people are actually looking at it and going, I really want to go there? Not many. Not many. Do it right. And there are some, I give examples in the book, where you look and you go, oh, wow. And these people, well, one would be the Wolsey, second most profitable restaurant in the world. They do it perfectly well. And you know what? People go, I've got nothing to post. You run a restaurant that's so boring that you can't come up with one thing a day that would excite or interest people who live local to you, who like eating out. Yep. Maybe you need to have a little rethink then.
Well, I think what we found on that is it's so foreign to a lot of people. Like, to me, it makes sense that every day I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. It's part of my daily life that it's easy for me to come up with stuff. I mean, I've got a board right here with 20 ideas. Whereas a lot of restaurateurs, and even business people, what I found since 2008, we've been creating content calendars where I'll tell them, hey, every Monday, it's a funny video. Every Tuesday, it's a boomerang. Every Wednesday, it's a quote. Every Thursday, highlight an employee. And I always tell people, if you can make it that easy and just know that you got 3 topics that you can choose from every day of the week. And so when you come in, you look at your board and go, it's Wednesday. Boom, I'm going to do hashtag Wednesdays because Tony told me to. And I'm going to get in there and do a funny quote and do something and put hashtags. I think it becomes easier. But I think it's the problem is they don't plan it. And I had somebody recently, one of the guys that was on my podcast, he talked to me, he's like, Matt, and I've said this many times, like, owning a restaurant, you're a salesperson. And your job is to ask people to do business with you. If you don't ask people to do business with you, they don't do business with you or you get less. Well, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, these are all places to ask people to do business with you. Quit ignoring them and get on there and be creative. If you're telling me you can't sell somebody, if somebody's sitting at your table and they go, hey, what's great on the menu? If you're telling me you don't have anything to tell them, tell people on Facebook or Instagram the same exact thing.
Absolutely. You know that yourself that there's actually not a lot of money to be made in selling books unless you sell 1 million or more.
Yeah.
But so at the end of the book, I actually do have a planner, so they can actually go to my website and buy the planner. So there's a little uplift there where Amazon don't get any of the money, and I supply a planner that I know works, and undercut everyone else. They'll be able to buy that and do exactly what you just talked about.
What's the? Do you have a website? Can you give us the website now, or we gotta wait for the book?
You've got to wait for the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait for the book.
Okay. Yeah. It's only to the end of the month. Don't worry
Okay.
about it. Okay. So I wanted to go back to the thing that you talked about before we finish here and wind up. And we were talking about actually driving customers into your restaurant. So I want to give you, this is something that you talk about a lot, I know. And I want to give a real life example of this. So my flat in London is in Limehouse. Now, most people won't have heard of Limehouse, but Canary Wharf. Okay. My next door neighbour, but 3, is Sir Ian McKellen, and he owns the local gastro pub. Another 5 doors down from him is one of Gordon Ramsay's restaurants. Across the road from them is an Italian restaurant that is a fun place to go. They get it totally. Across the square with the waterfall from them is a restaurant called the Piano Bar. And I'm on Facebook like you all the time. And there's a Facebook group for the area where I live. And people were talking about it's such a lovely restaurant and they do such lovely food. And it's such a pity no one goes in there. And I just made a comment, it's because they don't do any damn marketing. The owner came back and he went, well, why don't you come round and show us? So about 3 days later, I'm passing by and I got the door half open. And he goes, there's this French guy with the most ridiculous moustache you've ever seen in your life. It was almost like it had been glued on, but it wasn't. He prepared it every morning. And he went, Mr. Perry, I think. It was like a scene out of a film. And I went, yeah. And he went, why didn't I get you an espresso and we sit down and talk about it? He said, look, my customers are Sir Ian McKellen, Gordon Ramsay, and that place just over there. What can I do? I said, do you have a marketing plan? He went, no. I said, do you have a marketing budget? And he said, no. And I said, would you open up any other type of business without a marketing plan and marketing budget? No. So what is it you think we're doing? It's a lovely place to come to. I said, but nobody knows it. So what are we going to do? And he said, we haven't got much money. I said, fine. What can you afford? Forget about me, right? I'm local. For me, it's my ego. I'm going to do this to prove to you, okay? And then we can do something afterwards. I said, so what do you know, the type of restaurant it is, this, that, and the other. I'm like, fine, okay, right. How many people live in this street? He said, I don't know. I said, right, let's just go on to Facebook and let's just geotag it. Let's have a look. There are 3,000 people live in this street. It's a very, very long street, famous street in London. Okay, what's the average income of these people? That most of them haven't got children, okay? So it's 2 earning adults, mostly working in Canary Wharf in the financial sector, both earning high income, lots of disposable income. What do they all have in common? Don't know. They all have a birthday. Oh, yeah. Let's see how many have a birthday in the next 30 days. So we pipe it in, right? It's like 500. No, it wasn't actually, it was more than that. I think it was about 800. This one street, not going down the side streets even.
Yeah.
Just this one street. 800 people in the next 30 days have a birthday. If you had a budget of, say, 150, well, let's talk dollars again. Let's say $150, okay, per month. Could you afford that if it drove people in the door? Yeah, okay, fine. Let's put together a special offer to drive them in. You know this. Birthday offers for a restaurant are it's the magic. Yep. It's the simplest thing that you can do. And all you have to do is to give away, you can give away the main course to birthday boy or girl, because nobody goes out on a birthday on their own. They come with a group of people. If they are on their own, you probably don't want them in there. So they're going to come in with, and we found it was an average of 5, if I'm right. I think it was an average of 5 people. Over 90 days, we measured it. It was an average of 5 people came in. So we did the main course free of charge, but they come in, they spend a lot of money because it's someone's birthday.
Yep.
They
Drink,
order
dessert.
the drinks, the champagne, and because they're all local as well. It's London. They're not worried about driving. They're just going to wander off home, and they're going to spend a lot of money. The average take, I think, per head was in the region of, again, I could have convert to dollars. Say it was about $27.
Yeah.
Now, if you're worried that we're like, hey, we're really busy. Well, if you're really busy, you're going to be talking to me or you, Matt, anyway, are you? But you're not. So therefore, you can do it any night you want. But if you're really concerned, the birthday doesn't have to be on the day. It could be on a quiet day, like a Monday or a Wednesday. And you can actually run it for those days. Birthday offers for restaurants and for smart upmarket bars are just that. It's just sitting there waiting for the taking.
Yep.
If there was money to be made from the marketing of it, i.e., for somebody like yourself or one of the people in your group, then of course they'd be all over it. But of course they won't actually pay a lot for the marketing service. But it is the start of a relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I mean, when I first switched to doing digital marketing, I would actually go and do it for free for 30 days because I have money. I don't need to worry about paying my bills. Why should you trust me? I'll go and do it. I'll do it for nothing. But you know what? Are you going to get out of every 10? You'll get 4 who will go, yeah, thanks, bye. But they're losers anyway. The other 6 are going to go, you proved it. You're right. Okay, let's work out a budget. Because you're driving money into their tills. So if you're starting out in this industry, if you're 23 years old, you've just left college, you've done a course, and you go, right, okay, I want to really do whatever it is. Let's stick to restaurants, but it could be anything. Walk into doors, knock on them, do your research first, go and talk to them. Don't do this emailing 50 people a day. How many emails do you open a day?
Oh, do I open? I don't know, 50?
That's a percentage of what?
Oh gosh,
not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I probably delete a few hundred. So I mean, I don't get a lot of junk anymore though. I've cleaned up mine, but I would say I probably open 15 and 20% of what I get.
Right. Okay. So you're doing a better job than me in clearing up the junk. I've got to talk to you about that. So if I get Messenger, then obviously you look at that. But one day that's going to be the same as email.
Yeah.
We're going to be overwhelmed. But you know what? Just sidetracking for a moment, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger are merging into one tool. So that's going to be one platform, and that's going to be crucially important, probably will overtake email. So that's something for people in marketing, restaurants to actually, to look into. So I guess to summarize, you've got to drive people in. The easiest way is the birthday offer. It's about, one of the things in whatever business you're doing is customer acquisition cost. You used to be in the boat business.
Yep.
You don't might buy many boats. Your best day is when you buy it, and the next best day is when you sell it.
You sell it.
Yeah. And, so you don't buy a boat and then go buy a next one next week. You've got your customer acquisition cost, and that's it. That's what it costs you to get the customer. In the restaurant business, your customer acquisition cost is to get a customer today. Once you've got them, collect the data. Once you've got the data, keep them coming in.
Yep.
If that means that occasionally you give things away, then do it.
Yep.
Because you know what? Has the restaurant owner ever sat down and calculated their customer acquisition cost, i.e., how many bucks they paid in real money from their marketing efforts to actually get someone in that front door? How many of them actually even thought about it or measured it? Not a lot.
Not many. Well,
The
awesome. What you got? One more thing?
Yeah. One more thing.
Okay.
You've got to figure out what your customer acquisition cost is. This is something I learned from Jay. What's his name? The American guy in California. Jay. Jay Abraham.
Abraham. Yep. I saw him speak in a small group about a year ago.
I know, and you said you didn't like it.
I think he was tired. I think he was tired, or maybe had too many scotches.
Man, he's older than I am.
The good memory, though. That's a good memory.
Jay, Jay, back in the 80s and the 90s was brilliant.
Yeah.
Jay, I did a course in LA with Jay Abraham. It was a 2-day course. And it was like $2,000 back in those days, you know. But man, it was worth every penny I spent. The most important thing I learned from Jay Abraham was understand customer acquisition cost. Once you know what that number is and you know what your margins are, then you know how much money you can spend to drive a customer into the door of your business. Once you've driven them into the door of your business, then you have to keep selling them, reselling them, upselling them, side selling them. And if occasionally you give away a freebie, then so what? Because that number of that freebie is cheaper than the original customer acquisition cost was.
Here's what I'll finish on, what drives me crazy. I appreciate your time with acquisition. You mentioned the restaurant over there, which is really good, which is funny. It's got a similar name as my favorite restaurant here called Walt's. There's a restaurant in Northern Kentucky called Walt's Hitching Post. Been around forever. I've been eating there since I was a little kid. They don't have my data. They don't have my information. The guy at one point reached out to me because I guess he heard me say this, and he got my cell phone and, hey, I got your cell phone now. And I started talking about what we do, and he blew me off. It's what some of these restaurant guys have. They know more than anybody else. I went there 2 weeks ago for my daughter's birthday. We spent $365. We won't go there again till probably February. We don't drive by there. I don't work near there. I don't live near there. I don't drive by it. But we go there 3 to 4 times a year, and it's always a $250 to $350 bill, depending on how many people are with me. My parents, my mom, my dad, my brother, whoever. If they had my information, if they took a little effort and said, here's Matt Plapp, here's his phone number, here's his email address, and we can now retarget him on Facebook and Instagram, and they asked me to come do business with them, I would probably go 3 to 4 more times a year. And so I always joke, I'm like, would you not give me, I don't want a free steak, but you're telling me it's not worth your time to give me a free $50 steak that might cost you 15 to 20 bucks in order to get me to spend another $1,000 in your restaurant? It's just comical.
One of the problems is that a lot of people go into the restaurant industry, go into it because, bite my tongue here and be polite, they are either unable to work for somebody else, or they simply don't want to work for somebody else. And they kind of like the idea of running a restaurant.
Yeah. A lot of these people, when they start out, they haven't even invested in buying a book on Amazon about how to run a restaurant. Yeah.
There's no other industry in the world. Would Elon Musk go into a new venture without doing some research? Nope, I don't think so. But you are such a genius that you're better than that. You don't need to. Yeah. I'm sorry to say that my final words on this now, but this last 4 months has been horrible for everyone in business. And I am afraid that here in London and around the rest of the United Kingdom and in the world, a lot of those restaurants, although they have opened up this week, but on such a strict schedule that even the Wolsey won't make any money. I spoke to them. They will not make any money with the limitations. A lot of these restaurants will never open again.
No.
Never. These
One
people are going.
One of them down the street from my house just closed today. Sugar Fire Barbecue closed. Mile from my house, a couple miles from my house.
It's. I'm afraid it is bankruptcy. The ones that do survive have got to find somebody in their area who truly understands marketing in the modern age. And it's no different to what I was doing in the 80s before the internet, with the DOS computer, Now it is so ridiculously easy to do it. And if you are struggling, you just go into Google and do a search and then find people like you and other people who understand how to do it for them. And, it's not particularly expensive. If it costs them $900 a month to actually do this and drive customers in, well, have you worked out your customer acquisition cost? Great. You know what it is? Can you afford to pay this guy? Great. If you can't, maybe you need to have a look at your business. Yeah. And on that note, it's getting dark here in London. So,
what time is it in London?
It is now 8 o'clock in the evening.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, hey, have a good evening. I appreciate it. We're going to look for it on Amazon, end of July, early August. Instagram Secrets for Restaurants by Mr. Tony Perry. We appreciate your time.
Matt, always good to talk. See you. Bye-bye, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.